sounds like a story to me. Some crazy fable that you would not believe. Oh, but ain't you
Welcome to the Avram Davidson Universe podcast, where we get to listen to some of the best stories ever written. Adored by Ursula K. Le Guin, Philip K. Dick, Frederick Pohl, Stephen King, Ray Bradbury, and so many others. Each episode, we are going to listen to an amazing story, have some great guests, and we also welcome great guests. So once again, welcome to the Avram Davidson Universe.
Welcome to the Avram Davidson Universe. I'm Bob from Wheel of Genre, and this is Virgil from Literally Books. Today
Hello.
We're going to talk about, and don't forget the one red rose. Virgil, tell us about Literally Books.
So I've got I almost wanted to say podcast. I have a YouTube channel and Literally Books, and really I just read whatever I choose to read is what I usually talk about. Mostly fantasy and horror and sci-fi, but that branches out from there. And so we kind of we met on a live show that Chris from Luminal Spaces put on, and you happened to notice that I had reviewed an Avram short story, and I was very excited to discover that you were part of the Avram Davidson podcast universe, or is it the other way around? Universe podcast. Anyway, I get it backwards.
Universe podcast,
Yeah. There's something in there, and I was really excited because actually one of the very first other channels that ever commented on my channel was Seth from the Avram. And when I had read and talked about Avram's story of the Golem, and that kind of reminded me to go back later and read that whole treasury book, and it was a really great experience.
It's a great collection. I saw you did a video too about the whole collection, because I saw the Golden video, and then later you reviewed the entire Avram Davidson treasury. You had a lot of really interesting things to say, and I was curious about your opinions on his legacy and his writing style, because in your video you talked about he's a writer's writer, and also he's not appreciated enough. I was wondering, how did you feel about that when you were reading the full treasury, and then how much you've heard about him before, or how much people are talking about him?
So let's see. My very first experience reading Avram was from a short story collection called the Oxford Book of Fantasy Stories, and I wish I have it somewhere, but I'm not at hand. And there was an Avram Davidson short story in there. I can't remember which short story it was, but I think it was a detective. It must have had a fantasy slant, but I think it was sort of a
Esther Hazy. One of the
I
Esther
think it
Hazy
might
stories?
have been. I think it was. And I'm looking over to my shelf where I think I've got his books, but I don't remember where. I rearranged. I think it's part of the other 19th century. I think that
cool.
that same short story might occur in that same collection, I think. Anyways, I read this short story and I thought, I really like this. This is something very unique to me, and I was really interested in it. And so read that story, and then so I picked that book, the other 19th century, up a long time ago and shelved it. And like a lot of other books that I've got, shelved it, and I was like, I'm going to come back. It didn't get back to it. And then doing a thing early in the channel's life, reading like various varieties of Frankenstein, and that Golem was recommended, and read that and thought it was such a really fun, short, humorous story. And then starting to read this treasury, it really kind of like that unique quality that I had remembered from that early story whose title I can't remember. And I don't remember much about it, unfortunately, but it was a long time ago. And then the Golem, and I just saw that every one of these stories was so unique and so fresh. And it was just something like, I've not read a story like this before. Like, I've read stories that were maybe set in the same time period or tried to deal with the same thing, but never in this style. And usually not as creative, not as unique, not as individual, I guess. And it was just so great to see such original and like creative takes, and with really, really great prose style. So so engaging, so easy to read, and then so much fun. Like there's just not only like the story is fun, but like the moment to moment paragraphs are fun. They're just so well written. And I thought, why is no one talking about him? And what's crazy is like in the book, right? Like every one of these stories is introduced by another huge writer or someone, and they all are like, "This guy's amazing." Like, like every single one of those comments is like, "Yeah, he's amazing." And by the way, here's a really cool little anecdote or something. And it was just like, I still am so impressed. Just rereading the story we're going to talk about today, I was just like, such a short story and just so much great work going on in there. So charming. It's such a I feel like he's got like this thing that not a lot of writers are, but he's more of a storyteller than a writer. And I think, you know what I mean? It's like the sort of, it seems like he's talking right to you. A lot of his writing is like, hey, you know, and you remember this one thing, but don't worry about that. And this is kind of that's how the writing comes off. And it's so much fun to read. It's so much, I get so excited. I'm always like, here, read this book. I've literally tried to leverage every member of my family to read something out of this book.
In your video, you mentioned a lot of so like you just said, there's lots of famous authors also talking about different stories and giving introductions, and you mentioned some of them. You said Harlan Ellison, Damon Knight, William Gibson, Ursula K. Le Guin, Gene Wolfe. They're all saying how great he is. And one of the things you said, like he's unique, but also that he's funny. He uses vernacular in a really interesting way, and he's great at world building. And a great thing I thought too is you said it's not that he writes almost in a dense way, but it's not that he uses $10 words, but he gets $10 of work out of $1 words.
Yes. And to me that shows how much skill he has at crafting his writing. It's so hard. It's really easy to use a large word and slap a big word down and just say, well, somebody can like intuit all different types of different things about it, and that word can do a lot of work because it has so many interpretations.
30 letters. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, there's so many ways to look at it, or it's like the perfect word. But I always find that when a writer can like draw that language back down and make the language a little simpler, but they can communicate really complicated ideas in really in very simple language. It shows the skill, like how, and that always is more effective too. And that's what I just find. There's one little line in this story that we're going to talk about today that is very memorable to me. It's just a throwaway line. And he talks about how the character has these women that live upstairs who have no English. You know, and that's I just love that. It was like just a little sentence that makes you go, they have no English. And that's such a simple thing to say, but it does so much work. It's like, you know, you have these picture these women who speak a language, you don't even know what language, but that there's difficulty communicating with them and all this other stuff, and all that work is done with just this tiny little, you know, it's just perfect. I just think like, what a great way to say it. Like, no, we don't need anything extra from that. It does everything you need, and it paints such a beautiful picture.
And it's so much more special than just they don't speak English. You know, they have English is much different. It's unique. I think we should jump into listening to the story, and then we can. I'm always saying spoilers, so I'm just worried I'm going to say a bunch of spoilers, get people angry. But anyway, let's listen now to, and don't forget, The One Red Rose, and we'll come back and talk about it a little bit more.
And don't forget The One Red Rose. Charlie Barton was the staff of an East New York establishment that supplied used gas stoves on a wholesale basis. He received deliveries at the back door, dollied them inside, took them apart, cleaned them, and cleaned them and cleaned them and cleaned them, till they sparkled as much as their generally run-down nature would allow, fitted on missing parts, and set them up in the front of the place, where they might be chaffered over by prospective buyers. He never handled sales. These were taken care of by his employer, a thick-set and necklace individual who was there only part of the time. When not fawning upon the proprietors of retail used appliance stores, he was being brutal to Charlie. This man's name was Matt Mungo, and he arrived in neat middle-class clothes from what he referred to as his other place, never further described to Charlie, who did not venture to be curious. Charlie doubted, however, that Mungo did, indeed he was certain that Mungo did not, display to employees and patrons of his other place the insulting manner and methods he used in the stove warehouse. Besides calling Charlie many offensive names in many offensive ways, Mungo had the habit of shoving him, poking him, and generally pushing him around. Did Charlie, goaded beyond patience, pause or turn to complain, Mungo, pretending great surprise, would demand, "What? What?" And, before Charlie could formulate his protest, he would swiftly thrust stiff, thick fingers into Charlie's side or stomach and dart away to a distance, whence he would loudly and abusively call attention to work he desired done, and which Charlie would certainly have done anyway in the natural course of things. Charlie lived on the second floor of an old and unpicturesque building a few blocks from the warehouse. On the first floor lived two old women who dressed in black, who had no English and went often to church. On the top floor lived an Asian man about whom Charlie knew nothing. That is, he knew nothing until one evening, when, returning from work, and full of muscular aches and pains and resentments, he saw this man trying to fit a card into the frame of the nameplate over the man's doorbell in the downstairs entrance. The frame was bent. The card resisted. Charlie pulled out a rather long knife and jimmied the ancient and warped piece of metal. The card slipped in. And the Asian man said, "Thank you, so." "Oh, that's all right." And Charlie looked to see what the name might be. But the card said only bookstore. "Funny place for a store," Charlie said. "But maybe you expect to do most of your business by mail, I guess." "No, oh," the Asian man said. And with a slight bow, a slight smile, and a slight gesture, he urged Charlie to precede him up the stairs in the dark and smelly hall. About halfway up the first flight, the Asian man said, "I extend you to enjoy a cup of tea and a tobacco cigarette whilst in my so newly opened sales place." "Why, sure," said Charlie instantly. "Why, thank you very much." Social invitations came seldom to him, and, to tell the truth, he was rather ugly, slow, and stupid, facts that were often pointed out by Mungo. He now asked, "Are you Chinese or Japanese?" "No," said his neighbor, and he said nothing else until they were on the top floor, when, after unlocking the door and slipping in his hand to flip on the light switch, he gestured to his downstairs co-resident to enter with the word, "Do." It was certainly unlike any of the bookstores to which Charlie was accustomed, in that he was accustomed to them at all. Instead of open shelves, there were cabinets against the walls, and there were a number of wooden chests as well. Mr. Bookstore did not blow upon embers to make the tea. He poured it, already sweetened, from a thermos bottle into a plastic cup, and the cigarette was a regular American cigarette. When tea and tobacco had been consumed, he began to open the chests and the cabinets. First, he took out a very, very tiny book in a very, very strange-looking language. "I never saw a paper like that before," Charlie said. "It is factually palm leaf, a Buddhist litany. Soot is employed, instead of ink, in marking the text. Is it not precious?" Charlie nodded and politely asked, "How much does it cost?" The bookman examined an odd-looking tag. "The price of it," he said, is a bar of silver the weight of a newborn child. He removed it gently from Charlie's hand, replaced it in the pigeonhole in the cabinet, closed the cabinet, lifted the carven lid of an aromatic chest, and took out something larger, much larger, and wrapped in cloth of tissue of gold. Edition of great illustrated work on the breeding of elephants in captivity, on yellow paper, smeared with alum in wavy pattern. Most rare. Agreed? For one thing, Charlie hardly felt in a position to disagree, and for another, he was greatly surprised and titillated by the next illustration. "Hey, look at what that one is doing!" he exclaimed. The bookman looked. A faint, indulgent smile creased his ivory face. "Droll," he commented. He moved to take it back. "How much does this one cost?" The dealer scrutinized the tag. "The price of this one," he said, "is set down as a pair of white parrots, an embroidered robe of purple, 67 fine inlaid vessels of beaten gold, 100 platters of silver filigree work, and 10 catties of cardamoms." He removed the book, rewrapped it, and restored it to its place in the chest. "Did you bring them all from your own country, then?" "All," said the Asian man, nodding. "Treasures of my ancestors, brought in across the ice-fraught Himalayan passes upon the backs of yaks. Perilous journey." He gestured. "All which remains, tangibly, of ancient familial culture." Charlie made a sympathetic squint and said, "Say, that's too bad. Say, I remember now, in the newspapers, Tibetan refugees. You must have fled from the approaching Chinese communists." The bookman shook his head. "Factually not. Non-Tibetan. Flight was from approaching forces of rapacious Du Thahimyig, wicked and dissident vassal of the king of Bhutan. As way to Bhutan proper was not available, escape was into India." He considered, withdrew another item from another chest. "Well, you speak very good English." "Instructed in tutorial fashion by late the Oliver Blunt Piggott, disgarbed shaman of a Christian fane in Pune." He lifted the heavy board cover of a very heavy volume. "When was this?" "Ago." He set down the cover, slowly turned the huge, thick pages. "Perceive barbarians in native costume bringing tribute." Charlie had definite ideas as to what was polite, expected. He might not be able to, could hardly expect, to buy. But it was only decent to act as though he could. Only thus could he show interest. And so, again, ask he did. Again, the bookman's pale, slim fingers sought the tag. The price of this one is 1 mummified simurg enwrapped in 6 bolts of pale brocade and 100 measures of finest musk in boxes of granulated goldwork, and a viper of Persia pickled in Venetian treacle. He replaced the pages, set back the cover, and set to rewrapping. Charlie, after some thought, asked if all the books had prices like that. Yes, all these books have such prices, which are the carefully calculated evaluations established by my ancestors in the high vale of Lombia, formerly the crossroads of the world, before the earthquake buried most of the passes, thus diverting trade to Lhasa, Samarkand, and such places. So... A question that had gradually been taking the shape of a wrinkle now found verbal expression. But couldn't you just sell them for money? The bookman touched the tip of his nose with the tip of his middle finger. For money? Let me have thought. Ah, here is the Book of Macaws, Egrets, and Francolins in the 5 colors, for only 83 gold mohurs from the mint of Babir Mogul and 1 silver dirhem of Aaron the Righteous. You call him Aaron the Righteous? Not. Pardon. Harun al-Rashid. A bargain. Charlie shook his head. No, I mean just ordinary money. The book dealer bowed and shook his own head. Neighboring, sir, he said, I have not 27 times risked my life, nor suffered pangs and pains innumerable, merely to sell for ordinary money these treasures handed down from my progenitors, nor ignore their noble standards of value. Oh, nay! And he restored to its container the Book of Macaws, Egrets, and Francolins in the 5 colors. A certain stubbornness crept over Charlie. Well, then, what is the cheapest one you've got, then? He demanded. The scion of the High Vale of Lumbia shrugged, fingered his lower lip, looked here and there, uttered a slight and soft exclamation, and took from the last cabinet in the far corner an immense scroll. It had rollers of chalcedony with ivory finials and a case of scented sandalwood, lacquered in vermilion and picked with gold. Its cord weights were of banded agate. This is a mere diversion for the idle moments of a prince. In abridged form, its title reads, Book of Precious Secrets on How to Make Silver and Gold from Dust, Dung, and Bran. Also, how to obtain the affections, plus 138 attitudes for carnal conjunction, and 60 recipes for substances guaranteed to maintain the stance, as well as tasting good, by a sage. He opened the scroll and slowly began to unwind it over the length of the table. The pictures were of the most exquisitely detailed workmanship and brilliant of color, on which crushed gold quartz had been sprinkled while the glorious pigments were as yet still wet. Charlie's heart gave a great bound, then sank. No, I said the cheapest one. His host stifled a very slight yawn. This is the cheapest, he said, indifferent almost. What is cheaper than lust, or of less value than alchemy or aphrodisiacs? The price, he said, examining the tag, which was of ebony inlaid with jasper. The price is the crushed head of a sandal merchant of Babylon with a red rose between his teeth. A trifle. The precise utility of that escapes me, but it is of no matter. My only task is to obtain the price as established. That, and, of course, to act as your host until the stars turn pale. Charlie rose. I guess I'll be going anyway, he said. I certainly want to thank you for showing me all this. Maybe I'll be back tomorrow for something, if they haven't all been sold by then. His heart knew what his heart desired. His head knew the impossibility of any of it, but his lips, at least, maintained a proper politeness, even at the last. He went down the stairs, his mind filled with odd thoughts, half enjoyable, half despairing. Heavy footsteps sounded coming up. Who was it but Mungo? I thought you said you lived on the 2nd floor, he said. No use lying to me. Come on, dumbbell, I need you. I ain't your goddamn money for a change. My funkin' car's got a flap. Move it, I tell you, spithead. When I say move it, you move it. And he jabbed his thick, stiff fingers into Charlie's kidneys, and, ignoring his employee's cry of pain, half-guided, half-goaded him along the empty block lined with closed warehouses, where, indeed, an automobile stood, somewhat sagging to one side. Get the goddamn jack up! What are you dreaming about? Quit stumbling over your goddamn feet, for Christ's sake! You think I got nothing better to do? You think I do nothing but sell greasy stoves to greaseballs? Move it, nipplehead. I want you to know that I also own the biggest goddamn shoe store in Babylon, Long Island. Pick up that tire iron.
And we're back. Thanks for joining us. Virgil, great story. What are your first impressions? What do you want to jump into first?
So what I really like about this story is this sort of, that there's this fantastical element to it, this sort of fantasy that our main character, whose name eludes me, who he sort of falls into this fantastic world, and that he just sort of is like, oh, what's this? And again, that language is so good, because it's like there's this whole tapestry of other really cool things going on in this little bookstore, and the bookkeeper or bookseller is going through, and you have these gorgeous manuscripts, and he's talking about it. The other guy's like, well, don't you just want to sell them for money? He's and I just love how he's our window into this, and and I actually looked a couple of these. I'm like, is this actually a real place, or is it fantasy? Because I couldn't tell. I just didn't, I know Avram's known. I remember there was somebody said Avram's known for being kind of like Google before there was Google for a lot of writers. They would say, well, if we didn't know, we would call Avram or something. I think did Silverberg say something like that in one of his, I don't remember who said it. But I could see that. And I looked up some of the fantastical, or what I thought might be fantastical names, and they were real. They're not fantastical. They're real, or at least as far as I can tell, they are. But I couldn't tell. And I love that I couldn't tell. I love that it felt like it was real, but it might be a fantasy, and I'm not really sure when the divide is. I don't know. Did I answer the question? Anyway, but,
I love that.
It's just such a fun story, and it's so cool to see this really great part of the fantasy be in just the way that these prices of these weird and esoteric books are given, and it reads like something you would see in like a Sinbad story or something like that. Oh, how much is this? Oh, so many bars of silver or something like that. I just love that so much. It's so good.
I thought that was so good too. I want to read one of the examples, and I think it's an interesting idea to have. No longer not using cash. There's no way to really quantify how much you're going to pay for this, and it's funny because they're in a weird. It's almost like a cabinet of curiosities, but it's just this little tiny bookstore in an apartment complex, and he just put the word bookstore above it. But then when Charlie goes in, he's toting up his huge heater up the stairs, and he gets drawn into this place. And so one of the things, let's see, where is it? He says, sorry. Oh, an edition of a great illustrated work on the breeding of elephants in captivity on yellow paper, smooth with alum and wavy pattern, most rare. Agreed? And he says, yes, but the price is set down. It's a pair of white parrots, an embroidered robe of purple, 67 fine inlaid vessels of beaten gold, 100 platters of silver filigree work, and 10 caddies of cardamoms. Whoa!
It sounds so good, doesn't it? It just sounds beautiful. That whole sentence is just so beautiful.
It's astonishing. Yeah, the fantasy, the world building. You've mentioned this before, his subtle world building. You get that. And I think we only get a glimpse of 4 different objects, and they're all books. but the amount of things that are kind of layered and piled up in these prices really build up this cabinet of curiosities, fantasy land.
Yeah, and just in that particular book itself, like the literal treasury that is required to obtain this book, and only those items, right? It's like you can't have like three, like one extra parrot and like a few, like, sorry, that's not the price, you know? It's like you got to get the change right, you know, or whatever. I just love that. I love that it's like somebody who wants this book that bad, they have to acquire all these elements, these different things to make this purchase. And it's like who is this book for that can obtain these things? You think of these like crazy princes or something, or somebody going on some epic quest to get this book or something. You know, it's like you can imagine all different kinds of ways to access it. And it's just I just love that. It's just so good. And it's just like married to this story about this guy who's just like, I don't know, like a repairman. He just like fixes flats and stuff like that.
Repairman, yeah.
Yeah, you know, and he's just kind of like a simple guy, and he's like, oh, okay. And then the guy, takes the book from him. He's like, yeah. I said, okay. He's like, I don't know what I do with that. What does he say? He said he wants to be interested, to be like courteous, basically. So he's going to pretend like he's going to buy these things. Well, how much is this one?
Yeah, he's trying to be polite.
Right.
Oh, do I have 2 parrots and a robe inlaid with gold?
Right, inlaid with gold. Right.
Yeah.
And they're so specific too. It's not just like it's not just like piles of gold. It's like these really like elaborate filigrees of this or something. It's not something simple. You're not just gonna. I just love it.
I was really curious, like, because when I was reading this, I was like, oh man, Charlie, you just got to participate. Just say you got something. See if you can haggle down, or, you know, trade 2 pigeons, rats with wings, and see if it works. But it made me think of trading, like, in general. And I was just curious, when I was, I was obsessed with Pokemon and was so into trading cards, and it was the stakes were so high, and they're all just little tiny cards. But as you're there with your card, and you're like, I remember when I opened that booster pack, and Blastoise was staring at me, and now you're making me trade it. Did you ever have any experiences of that? This is just my trauma, really. But did you ever have any weird, any trading experiences?
Yeah. So I don't remember playing like the card games and doing that where your cards were at stake. I hadn't done that.
That's probably for the best.
Yeah, I could, I could see the energy from that. How like nerve-wracking and traumatizing it might be to a kid. You know, he's like, well, this is my favorite card, so I just will never use it. I'm just gonna hide it and keep it because otherwise I could lose it or something, right?
For sure.
Which seems I get, like this weird like kids gambling or something. Sort of
I was gambling. I was out there with my dice.
It really, well, it was just Pokemon cards. You got
Pokemon cards. It got heated though. It was interesting, and it reminds me of this story too, because you would get so creative with the things that you traded. So it'd be like, okay, I mean, I don't have a Charizard now, but I'll give you 2 ice creams, and I'll give you this left shoe because it's really good, and then I'll give you
this broken transformer.
My broken transformer. Yeah, I'll throw my broken transformer.
You know what I mean? Something like he's missing a leg, but he's still pretty cool.
Yeah, he's still pretty. I mean, he'll transform into something else.
Right. It's like he's got a flat.
He's got a flat. But this story is so interesting to put Charlie, this guy, like you said, he's just toting his heaters, and then he gets stuck in this situation, and he's way out of his league. You know, He doesn't really know how to participate. But I started to think, to us, it seems ridiculous, like, to have something that elaborate. Like you said, who has all of these things on hand? Who can go who can go on this this magic quest and go and obtain these things? But I started thinking, this is just an aside, but I started thinking about actually how realistic this story is becoming as we're moving away towards things like NFTs. And have this adult student who she's got the coolest job ever. She belongs to an indigenous tribe in Taiwan, but then her job is this like indigenous publishing company, and she goes and talks to other elders from tribes just to talk and get histories and then put them into books so they can make sure the languages don't die out. But she said she was talking to one elder of the Rukai tribe, and she said they were talking about numbers, and they just got on this topic of numbers, and the elder was like, no, I'm not going to waste time doing 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And then she was like, come. So it was a pain in the ass for her to think like that in 5, 10. And she was like, who does 2, 4? That's useless. So she said, we count always in fours. 4, and then she could just rattle off all the numbers as quickly as possible. And for me, I have to pause and think like 4, 8, 12, 16. But she said the reason is one of their main staples, like one of the main crops for the Rukai people is millet. And so when you cut and harvest the millet, you have to hang it up to dry. And she said that it's best to tie it in 4s. If you tie it outside of 4s, it's going to fall apart or it won't be enough, and then you don't have the right count. So they've always done 4s. So the culture was always counting in 4s, and it's always ready into hand. I thought that was so interesting. How to me it's cool. Like, yeah, isn't that cool? Yeah.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, and like you said, and there's this whole like approach to the world, approach to how you view things. It reminds me of somebody did some. I watched something sometime. It talks about like British currency and the reason and how it's weird, how like a pound is this much and everything, and then they went into how. Well, the reason that they use certain numbers that like 12 and everything is because you could divide it so many different ways. So it's like, well, 12 can be divided in 2, it can be divided in 3, it can be divided in 4, it can be divided in 6. So if you have 6 people, if you were paying a group of people 12 amounts of coin, whatever, well, they could divide it up however evenly, as opposed to like paying them, in certain like 10. Well, there's only a few ways, like 2 or 3,
right.
2 ways to divide it evenly. And so that's why like 12 and like 144 and like certain numbers like that were like really, really valuable. And that's why those currencies did that. And it's just kind of the same thing. It's like this, you just grow up like, it seems silly. Like, why would you count in 4s? Like, that doesn't make sense. But then it's like, well, that's because that's pertinent. It makes sense. It doesn't, we're not doing this like math all the time and doing algebra. Like, we don't need that. We need to know how many units of 4 that we have or something. And that's awesome. Actually, it's kind of, that sounds like, it does sound like such an awesome job, by the way.
I know her job is super cool. But yeah, that's a great point. When it's not to hand, when it's foreign, when it's a totally different concept, it doesn't fit. And it's like, oh God, that's so hard. Why would you do that? But then you've got a great point. If it is to hand and it's directly connected to your experience, if it's connected to having often to divide or having to put the millet together, it just makes more sense to do that. I've got a crazy theory for you. It's pretty nuts.
All right.
But so you know how this story, it feels like almost not science fiction at all, not fantasy at all. It feels just like a realistic fiction story where stuff is just happening. But Avram was writing every genre. He's interested seemingly in every genre. And I feel like this actually is, while looking at the past and seemingly being about the past, I think it will actually be very related to our future. I started thinking about NFTs, non-fungible tokens. Have you ever looked into those much?
Not a whole lot. I know about them, a little bit about them, but I haven't researched very much about them. So you're going to tell me new stuff.
I'm going to tell you new stuff just because I haven't looked into anything, and I just started thinking about it today. But it's absolutely nuts. So how these non-fungible tokens work, and they are so similar to this story where it gets extremely specific. And the reason you want them is because they're so specific. It's not even the object you're getting. It's like the exchange rate itself is highly specific and weird. So for example, there's like a lot of them have been selling for like $23 million for a couple of these things. But one that was really famous, I think it generated the most money ever, 91.8 million total. And it's called the merge. And it was this multi-step process of you go and you buy a few of these tokens, and as you buy them, they merge and they tell you what radius they are. So your radius for this mass grows and grows and grows. And if you trade it, it grows more. And as it grows, it becomes the most rare of the tokens, even though it's seemingly identical, but it has a larger radius. And so many people paid for this. And I think in a few days, it generated $91.8 million. And I was thinking, like, it's getting weirder from there because now people are making genetic NFTs. So you can put your genome into an NFT and trademark it. And then now there's a digital signature, so no one can copy your genome, but you can sell it. Well, you can't legally sell it yet, I think, but they're trying to get you to sell it.
Yeah, and then that becomes another thing. You can't even use money. You have to.
No.
It's a whole separate currency that isn't connected or like it's broken away. That's awesome.
It's a
Or I
whole
guess
separate
it's awesome. I mean, it's awesome to think about. I don't know if it's like, is it awesome for the future? I don't know, but but like it's really neat to think about.
I think it's interesting too about the future. It is interesting to think about, but even like right now, I feel like I'm Charlie. You know, the character in the story was like, "Whoa, okay, this is pretty cool. I'm interested in this, but I'm also overwhelmed, and I'm going to learn about it because I'm trying to be polite." But then it's kind of frightening. I also found out that there's digital memorials, so now you can buy, like, if someone passes away, you can buy their digital stamp. There is a thing called Zacharias.ai, which you can buy these NFTs in a religion.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And it says, "Salvation is not for sale," says the AI prophet. "It's just coincidentally priced at $42.
Wait a minute. What is that from? Is it from?
This is from this AI, this Zacharias.ai. It's called the Zacharias Midjourney, and it's here's a few of the notable features.
It doesn't sound like it's something that's real. It sounds like fiction. It is.
It's real. It's real. It says, "The things you get with this, there are spiritual metrics, including an AI-generated sacred text never read by its human creator, Web3-powered NFT sacrament given to readers who submit proof of faith." We're getting to a weird future, and I feel like Avram Davidson had his finger on the pulse of this kind of thing coming back.
Yeah, that's crazy. I almost want to buy one. I don't even like to engage in that stuff, but I almost want to buy one because I want to see what is this?
Yeah, what is? I'll pay $42 for eternal salvation.
It's like I can get a couple, bars of beaten gold or whatever together. See what we can do.
Do you think? Here's another crazy one, because the supermodel Ava Herzegovia just sold her digital twin, or made her digital twin available, I guess, for purchasing. So people can now buy this meta human and use it in their ads without her ever being present. And then people are also making digital copies of cities. So there is a copy of Kyoto. And what they want to do is be able to sell these copies. So people will be able to purchase cities. Would you do it? Would you do it, Virgil? Would you buy a city?
Would I buy? It's probably, maybe, if it was, the price was right? If I had I guess, maybe. You think, oh no, I don't want to do that. But you could own Kyoto.
I could own for 2 white birds and a robe of gold.
I've got Kyoto on my PC downstairs. We go grab it. I'm bragging it up here. You can take a look. I don't even know. That's what gets me is like, can you even? I guess you could look at them, but I just don't. It's hard. I guess not being into it, it seems like such a mind bend. Like what? Like I understand. It's like you're making something unique and rare, and that it has that value and it's interesting, but it just, like I said, it bends my mind. Almost like Charlie in that sense. I'm sort of like, well, why would you collect all these things for this book about macaws? It's like, it's just kind of like, huh, okay. And so I don't know a whole lot about that. Although that is super fascinating, by the way. But it reminds me of like talking to Chris and some of the other guys. A lot of them, they'll send books back and forth to each other, right? Like, oh, hey, I've got this copy of this old pulp book. You want that? Oh yeah. Like, okay, how about this? And it's like, there's kind of this weird, that's sort of like what's going on with those guys. And they're like, hey, I'm going to send you a collection of books. Like, oh, let's see. I've got a Bob Shaw and I've got a couple Arthur C. Clarke's, but they're like the second printing. And so like, there's this weird, like, you know what I mean? So there's this, like, well, what's the condition of the book? And they're like, well, look at the spine and look here. And it's like, it's kind of the same thing. They go through a trade, like this sort of like evaluation, like, well, that seems about, it's not like super precise. So they're not trying to make perfectly equal trades because they're friends with each other, basically. But like similar trades, right? Like, I'm not going to send you $100 book for a $10 book. I'm like, that seems, we're not going to do that. But at some point it becomes like, well, I really want that book. So even though that book isn't as valuable, like currency wise, like I can't, it's hard for me to find this book. So I'll take it. And that one looks really good. I can't find good versions of it, even though that everything I find is like $1. They're all junk. So that's kind of, I guess, what's going on there. These weird book trays. Everybody's always got these packages and books coming in, and it's like, oh, look at this book, and it's
like a book haul. Oh,
yes. The book halls are sort of like displaying the treasures of the past. These
the treasures of the past.
Right.
What do you think? That makes me think of, there's the one scene. So they go through all of these different things. Like one of them is on a palm leaf. It's this book written on a palm leaf. These sutras, or no, Buddhist litany. And it's used with soot, and that's really rare. And it's the price. What is it? The weight of silver, the weight of a newborn child in silver.
Yes.
But then there's, which is great.
I love that too. It's like, what? Like, how do you show up and somebody's like, I don't know. Like, put that on the scale. Like, how do they check it? They're like, give me a newborn child.
Bring out the baby.
We need a newborn. That baby's just a week old. That doesn't count.
Yes.
We're not. That's not cool.
Don't scam me. Don't
weigh my
scam
bar
me, man.
silver. Don't weigh my bar silver against that baby. That's a big baby. Give me a regular baby.
Give me a newborn baby.
Right.
But there's another one that's interesting because we're talking about like, okay, I'm not going to trade you a $100 book for this $10 book. But he also, the bookseller is also undervalued. Or there are certain books he doesn't value because he says, okay, I'll show you the cheapest one. But he does value them all because of the, I guess, strife that he went through to bring them to this bookstore. Because he says, it never gets specific, but he says that he and his ancestors went through something to get all of these things here, and they suffered a lot. And even one that he says, what is it? It's a book of precious secrets on how to make silver and gold from dust, dung, and bran, and how to obtain the affections, plus 138 attitudes for carnal conjunction, and 60 recipes for substance guaranteed to maintain the stance as well as tasting good by a sage. And then he says, wow, that sounds like a great book. But but the bookseller says, no, it's the worst one. Who wants a book full of trash?
Yeah, because for him, cheapest wasn't price. Like, price is esoteric, but cheapest was like what it had to offer, which was just sort of like, like
it's a porn book.
Yeah, right. It's just a book about like, oh, you want to have sex, whatever. It's like, so what? He's like, what's cheaper than like, I can't remember exactly what he says, but what's cheaper than the way that this book is presenting these interludes or this information? And I just loved it. And of course, Charlie is like, I think he rolls it out. It's like illustrated with like beaten golden quartz or something. Like it's something like it's been like, so like this book wasn't just like somebody wrote it. It's like somebody spent like the greater part of their life like creating this this like scroll, and he's like, oh yeah, this thing, and
this garbage.
And they all have manila tags too. They all have these tags that he has to like, so let me see how much this is, and then he reads it off to him, which I love.
Yeah,
that it's not, he doesn't remember it. He has to say, oh, let's see. So first of all, the scroll thing is wonderful. And then I love too that he's like, well, he didn't set the prices. Like, he didn't set these are like handed down from his ancestors, right? Like somebody else, some council or some group of an older generation like decided that these are what the prices are. And I think of course the last one, which is pertinent to the sort of story, because it isn't just a story about like, look at how weird these prices are. There's a subtext there, which I love because the title is doing lots of work. Is like the price of a Babylonian sandal merchant's its head, right? It's like, and who has in his mouth one red rose, and he says, I'm not really sure what the value of that is. Like he's kind of like, I don't really know what I would do with this. Like if you bought this book,
severed head?
He's like, I don't really know what to do with this money. So you wonder, like, how does he even pay his bills?
Yeah.
Like, what does he do to make money? Because he can't. What are you gonna do with the head of a Babylonian sandal merchant?
Yeah,
give
it to the electrical company.
Right. Oh, another? Put it in the pile.
Another one. I just found the
Just-
quote. I was just searching for it about where these prices come from. And you were right. It says, they're carefully calculated evaluations established by my ancestors in the high vale of Lombia, formerly the crossroads of the world, before the earthquake buried most of the passes, thus diverting trade to Lhasa, Samarkand, and such places. So, and then he just moves on.
yeah. Like there's a whole story going on there,
Hmm.
and it's just, oh, yeah. And that's where I feel like that fantasy element comes out, which I think I looked up, that one of those names, and of course Google was kind of not happy. It's like, well, I don't know if that's what it is, but it's like, maybe you mean this, but it did sort of direct me. Of course, this was not long before we started, so I can't really recite anything because I don't remember, but it did sort of direct me to like a place one of the names directed me to a place in India that existed during like the 16 to 1800s or something like that, and everything. I was like, okay, so it's like there's going back to it, like Avram like did all this, like there's research involved in these names. These aren't just like consonant, vowel, vowel, consonant. You know, it wasn't like he just didn't make up a word. Like these are real. He got this from somewhere. You know, there's all this other extra little work going on too. I wonder where he got these descriptions. I don't know.
So
you know,
Avram crashed your Google.
I'm telling you, he was Google before there was Google. It reminds me of reading those that really good book of nonfiction of his, The Adventures in Unhistory.
Oh,
and he talks about like,
so good.
yeah, he talks about like Sinbad the sailor and everything else, and you just read that and you're just like, oh, this is so cool to read. I just love it. You know, you hear these really archaic titles for places that are now renamed something else, and it just felt like that reading this. So fun. It's great.
That is great. I think what you were just saying about the value too is really interesting, and I think that will also be a big part of the way the world is changing. You know how we were saying, am I going to buy my digital twin? Am I going to buy my own genome? I think that there's going to be something interesting, not just about AI, but how we value things, and that might change the way that we do things too. This story reminds me a lot. You and Chris were talking about Borges last time we met, and it reminds me a lot of one of the Borges stories. It's the analytical language of John Wilkins, which Foucault uses at the beginning of The Order of everyone's favorite French philosopher. I'm sure people are going to get upset about that. I'm sure there's lots of Derrida, but anyway, at the beginning he says that there's this Chinese encyclopedia. It's not a real thing, but he says that animals are divided into different classes. So they're taxonomized, not like bipeds, quadrupeds. They're taxonomized this way. A, belonging to the emperor. B, embalmed. C, tame. D, suckling pigs. E, sirens. F, fabulous. G, stray dogs. H, included in the present classification. And then it just keeps going. It just keeps going and going and going. But Foucault brought that up to say, look, it's absurd. It's ridiculous. It's like, why on earth would you classify things that way? But it's the same thing we were talking about earlier, looking at numbers. To us, it might seem like a ridiculous classification, but then when we think about that, that says a lot about the way that we classify things. It says a lot about us thinking, okay, no, it has to be defined by two legs, or it slithers on the ground, or what is its comparison to other established things like 2 legs, 4 legs, a tail, whatever. But he says that every time this shifts a lot, we get a new episteme, or a new kind of way of valuing things and a way of perceiving things. And they're unconscious rules that determine what kinds of knowledge are possible and how things are related. And I wonder, as we go through, and AI can play a lot in currency, and I think it will be kind of rule anything related to the bank eventually. And I think we will stop being as concerned with numbers in a weird way. And I wonder if we will start to revalue things now that AI is taking care of most of the numbers. Will we start this weird barter and trade system? Or are we going to start, stacking up our Pokemon cards, or our $100 book, or our robes inlaid with gold? A new future.
Yeah, really. That is interesting to think about, isn't it? Yeah, because I mean, even now, I think, and I think maybe you do some teaching, so you probably see it more than I would. But there's definitely like a move just in younger people of doing less math, because it's just
maybe.
like, well, this machine that I carry with me all the time, that's always like basically an extension of my body, does all that stuff way faster and better than and more accurately than I could. Why would I, how much value is there in me knowing how to do this math? It reminds me of like playing like tabletop role-playing games with the
Oh, yeah.
kids, and how like for me certain, like, oh, you roll a die that's 1 to 20 and like do like, well, okay, add 4. And to me that's not hard because I've done it for so long. But for them, they're always like, and I'm like, it's okay, just take your time. I'm like, we're here to play a game. It's okay. There's no rush. Like, go ahead. Like, what, count it out. I don't care if you count it out 1, 2, 3, you know? But it's just, and I guess they are younger too, but to see them sort of like struggle with that makes me think like, yeah, I guess it's like, it's just me, or maybe it's just, maybe it's a slightly older generation that is doing that. And it's not that they can't do it, or that or something. It's just that that's not where their time is spent. It's not spent doing those sorts of things where we used to have to do this much more, all this other hard work here. That's already taken care of, and they're doing something else. It's not like they don't do anything. It's just that their minds aren't on that. And it's so interesting. Yeah. And it might become, well, I don't know how to do my multiplication tables or whatever, but I can tell you if this thing is more or less valuable than that thing. And it's like, oh, you don't want to trade this for that. That's a terrible trade. This and this Pokemon card, and which is the thing right now too. Pokemon has got this huge resurgence this recently, at least in our area, like really big. I don't know why, but it is. Like this Pokemon card, this one are worth this much, and that card is worth more than all of them. That card is more valuable than all 3 of these cards, and they know that. That's like, okay. Where I would be like, a what? Like there's how many? There's like 200 Pokemon. They all have weird like sound names. I'm like, I don't know what any of them are.
It's a great way to teach English, because it's
is it really?
It is, because most of them are actually 2 English words put together.
Oh, that's so.
Except for like
that is so cool. I didn't think of it. That's actually, that's awesome. That's such a cool thing to hear. I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's nice because then you could tell the kids like, oh, you like this Pokemon? Great, it's got these 2 words, and they'll remember that for a long time.
And that works. I bet you that's got to be a godsend. Yeah, like, oh yeah, if you think about it, like, snore. Like, hey, that's what that means to, like, this, like, that's a sound that you make when you sleep, in English. That's what they say. You're snoring, and lax, you could say, well, it's not, relax. It's lax, it's not all there. It's not, it's lacking. That's so cool.
He loves to snore, and he loves to relax.
See, I'm learning all kinds of things today. I'm like, this is why I come on here.
Pokemon. It teaches us everything. See, I told you the stakes are high.
Well, yeah, but they know that because they're so invested. That's such a touch point, or like a keystone for them. That's awesome. That's cool.
So that could be us. I mean, in the future, we're going to be the Charlies in the room of being fascinated, but not really sure of what things are valued. How much is our digital twin really worth? We don't know.
Yeah.
But we can.
Isn't that weird?
But we can add.
Right, we can add, but we have no idea how valuable it is. It's like I just went to the grocery store and they gave me like 2 Charizards and like this. Like, is that good? Did I come out like, oh, he shortchanged you? We got to go back.
Shortchanged.
Like, what is he doing? Look at this card.
I was imagining something much darker. Of, can you add? How much is 2 plus 3? How much is your life worth? Oh no. It's gonna get crazy.
Yeah, and then I guess too. And what I loved about this story was that very end of the story. Of course, we get like this was sort of like, and the story ends with this with Charlie being berated by his boss or whatever. And of course, it sort of cycles back to the title, and I love that. And don't forget One Red Rose. It's like it wasn't that statement is never in the story. It's an inferred like ending to the story, which I loved, which was so good. Because what is the last thing that I can't remember Mungo.
Mungo, yeah.
Whatever the
Mean
last thing he
boss.
says, he's like, I also have a shoe store in Babylon, something like that. And you're like, oh, and he's just berating Charlie, and you're thinking, Charlie might be maybe he's had enough,
Yeah. Do you
I
think
like
then,
that.
for you, is it a happy ending or a sad ending? Is it a missed opportunity or is it hopeful for the future?
Um, I think it's a satisfying ending. Happy. I think because I think there's a moment in the story when that scroll, right? The scroll that is the cheapest scroll that the bookseller
Sex
has.
scroll. Yeah.
Yeah, he rolls it out, and Charlie is just like he's just his eyes are like dancing. He's like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful, and maybe he thinks it's neat too because of its context. I don't know. Which I have to wonder if he could read it. I guess he can't. I mean, it can't be in English,
I assume there's some sexy pictures in there.
right? And they're like all like really, really elaborate and really, like lots of craftsmanship was put into this. And so he really wants that, and he's like, and I got this boss who's always doing this thing. So I don't know, like in the immediate future, it feels like it would be like a comeuppance type thing. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. You got to wonder if like, well, what if the bookseller, if he gets his price, what does he do with it? And
Yeah,
then,
that's
like,
where does it go?
especially when the police come, when the police are like, where's this guy's head?
I paid good money for this head. Good books for
You
this
can't take that. It's like, this is evidence.
head. Just leave the rose. Leave the rose.
That's right. Yeah, it's just great. I just love that. I love that. I love that it cycles around like that. It's so good.
A nice circular story. I always like that too, and I think Avram will often do that, especially in the shorter ones that are like 4 pages, 5 pages, like this, where it does feel not just a journey, but almost like a circular structure, where you've come back in kind of a way.
I love it. It's just great. It reminds me of like there's a lot of his, like you said, a lot of his shorter stuff does work like that, where it kind of brings something around, or the title or the concept early in the novel or the story comes around to the end. Doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense, or don't really understand. Like it sort of makes sense, but it really pays off at the end. And I really liked how this one did that, and how you do kind of have to say, oh, okay. It's like, oh, that's okay. That's why we're saying that. That's interesting. I like that. I love it. And I like too, I guess we don't get as much of it here, but something else that I really like that Avram does is he does this sort of, especially like in his longer stories, he does this thing where he'll like do a setup, and the setup sometimes is kind of lengthy. I'm thinking like of that short story, The Hills Behind Hollywood High. And like there's this long setup with like Hollywood at a certain time, and you get drawn in, and then and at some point the story is started. You're getting interested, and you realize like, oh, this is my main character. This is the person I'm following, and you don't even. It's like it just sort of slides you right into the story, and you're like, oh, what's going on here? And there's also a sense too. It's harder to notice in this shorter story but it still happens. There's a sense of like everything is like the regular world that we live in, and then you fade into this sort of like magical realism or like fantastic setting, and then just fade back out into reality and back and forth. And I like in that Hills Behind Hollywood High story, it's like that. It's like just a regular story about Hollywood at a certain time, and there's these 3 women who want to get into acting. And then it becomes something else. This weird things start happening. Then it gets really strange, and then it goes back to normal again. And and you get that here too. It's like this very strange. It gets really weird. Like this little guy is running this bookstore out of like his apartment or something, and he's got all these like treasures, like things that people would like. That would be in a museum or something, right? It's like this wouldn't be something you would want to own in your like a little apartment or something. You'd want to have it like protected somehow. and then we go back into the real, and then it just pulls right back into the real world, and he gets right back to changing a tire or something like that, you know, and it's like that sort of callback to like, I want that piece of fantasy, and like I'll pay this exorbitant or dangerous price to get back in. And I just love the way that he just, it's like you don't even notice it. Like you don't even notice that like you stepped out of reality into fantasy and then back out of fantasy into reality again. And it just, I think that I see that so many times in his stories, especially his more fantasy focused and less science fiction-y stories, where you just sort of like fall into this fantasy and then you like leave it and you're like, I want to get back in. How do we get back?
That's very true about this story. It's like a little tiny oasis in this apartment building in his terrible life, and he has just a few minutes to experience it, and then he's thinking, oh, I'll go to that shoe store in Babylon to get whatever however he's going to get, you know, his injury.
Right, I'll pay I won't forget that one red rose. You know, I remember he said I need a red rose, right? I just love it. It's just so good, and it's just, that's why I think it's like it's not just writing, it's like storytelling. There's like which I think is like another, again, it's not as strongly here where where Avram's having like this sort of conversation with you where he's like, oh, you ever think about this? I think of like the lime killer stories being like that, where like he'll walk in and then it starts describing like, oh, this guy's drinking a lemonade, but lemonade is usually flavored like this or something like this, and it goes in this thing and it comes back. And you're like, oh, and you're like, okay, this is this is not important to the story at all. Like it has nothing to do with the story, but you love reading it, and you're like, I don't know why I needed that information, but I'm so happy that I got it.
I was along for the ride.
Yeah, and it's just in the same here. It's like this is such a storytelling story, not like less of a writer and more of a storyteller that happens to be like a storyteller's story that's been written down. I don't know. It's a really unique quality that he has to his writing. It's just one of the reasons I just love it. I think that's why so many of these they say he's a writer's writer. I don't know. I just think he's just a really good writer who happens to write non like fiction, just not like straight fiction. He writes fantasy and science fiction, but it's written like literature, which is what I love.
True master.
A little soliloquy there. I don't know. It's so fun. It's so enjoyable. I have to drink.
Virgil, I think I better stop. So I'm getting worried about my phone overheating.
Oh, okay.
I think, yeah, because then it might. No, that's fine. I just was looking at it. I think I better.
It looks hot.
It's looking at me like, oh.
It's like, you remember me?
You remember me? You left me here in the.
It's hard like that. You remember me?
Yeah. You left me here in the back of the parking lot. I've been waiting here the whole time. Who do you think you are? This is me and my phone all the time.
Who's that talking? That's my phone. Be quiet.
That's right.
Don't acknowledge. Don't recognize it. It just angry.
It'll only get worse. Don't you disavow me. Okay.
That's awesome. It is kind of the Mongo to your Charlie. It
is. That's true. Technology is.
Like, don't make me find a rose. I'll get.
Don't you find her? My coworker calls any computer the confuser. Don't make me use the confuser.
The confuser. I love that.
What are you doing? Oh, I'm slave to the confuser. Just typing away.
The confuser. For a lot of people, it is a confuser. I work with people all the time who are like completely. They're like, "Oh, we got to get you. You're the computer guy." I'm like, I don't know why that rumor started. I am not the computer guy. I don't know. They're like, oh, you know computers. I'm like, you mean I know how to left click? I mean, it's like, I know the left click and the right click. And it's like, just click. Like, oh,
that's some next level shit.
that is seriously, I'm not joking. That is what they say. And I'm like, no.
No.
That myth is gone far beyond my capacity.
Oh, it was my phone talking.
That's right.
Okay. All right, so that was a wonderful discussion of, and don't forget, The One Red Rose by Avram Davidson. And I'm Bob from Wheel of Genre. I forgot to say that. I'm joined here by Virgil from Literally Books. Virgil, can you tell us one more time, where can we find you?
At Literally Books on YouTube, and it's just I think at Literally Books will get you there, or Literally Books. There's another Literally Books now, but I don't know. One of them will have me in it, and the other one won't, and the one that has me is mine.
That's an easy problem to
Probably
solve.
the easiest. That's the easiest test to say like which one is it. Like these people were not him, and this one is. So
I'm not sure. I feel like somebody's lying to me. I don't.
now, if I was a guest on there, that would just totally ruin that. Then everybody's like,
should
oh,
do
this is whatever.
True metaverse at that point.
They converge.
Yeah. The converge. The convergence. The convergal. Okay.
That's
sorry.
right. I love that. Virgil.
The convergence. All right, Virgil. Thank you very much, and I'll
Thanks, Bob.
see you on Literally Books, because I'm going to go watch one of your videos. Literally Books is awesome, so you should go check it out. It's a very good show.
Wheel of Genre is absolutely amazing. I love the rapport that you and Zach have, by the way. It's fantastic. And this show as well, the Avram Davidson podcast, Universe podcast, is phenomenal too. Just I love this channel.
Talk about that as a weird, mind-boggling thing. If you're watching the Avram Davidson universe, watch the Avram Davidson universe.
Yeah, right. If you're not watching this show, you should be watching the show.
Am I?
At the very end of the video.
All right. See you, Virgil.
See you, Bob. Thanks very much.
God only knows. It sounds like a story to me. Some crazy fable that you would not believe.